So you get paid to embrace the fear of the unknown.
Hey, it's Walter here, and you're at the Think Profit podcast, where we're going to help you develop a rock solid trading confidence and avoid the potentially endless cycle of system switching. Right, Hugh?
That's right. We're going to help you develop a wealth mindset, develop a trading strategy that fits your core personality, and help you overcome the obstacles that stop over 90% of traders.
All right, Hugh, sounds good. You ready to go?
Yeah, let's do this.
Hey, Hugh. So here's a question from a trader. The trader is saying that I always tend to be anxious, especially when trading live trades. And it's like I'm fearful of what's going to happen. What should I do?
Yeah, that's a common question, right? I think it all
Yeah.
boils down to having confidence in your system, right? Confidence in your skills and having seen a lot of trades before. And I think that's all that really boils down to. So you should do your back testing. You should review your journal to see that you're trading correctly, trading according to your plan. And then that'll give you confidence. What do you think?
When you're prepared and over prepared, then things don't seem as difficult. Like, for example, like a job interview is a good example. If you go to a job interview and you're really prepared, you're ready, or any kind of performance where you've practiced a lot, say you're a pianist and you're going to go and do your piano concert. If you've done it enough, then you can feel confident. You can still feel nervous, but you know that you're going to be able to pull it off. The interesting thing, though, is like if you look at it from sort of like a philosophical point of view, which is that I was thinking a lot about this about 10 or 11 years ago. I remember when I was at the FX Street conference in Barcelona, I was thinking a lot about it. And I think that was in, I don't know, 2013 or something. But what was interesting about this was this idea of fear. And I had read a book. There's a famous trial attorney in the United States called Jerry Spence. He's known for never having lost a case. And although that's not that unusual, it is if you're a defense attorney, because they tend to lose a lot, right?
Yeah.
If they end up going to court, it's usually because the other side is like, yeah, we've got him. So in his book, he was talking about this idea of fear. There's actually a really interesting Mark Twain quote where Mark Twain says something along the lines of, and I'm probably going to butcher this, but something along the lines of, I have many fears in my life, most of which have never come true. And that's kind of trading in a nutshell when you think about it. So you get paid to embrace the fear of the unknown. And so because you're putting your money on the line in the same way that a gambler would, I don't think that gambling and trading are equivalent, but there are some elements like the risk management and the fact that your money is at risk to go away. That those are, I admit, those are similar. So if you think about it that way, that what we're doing here as traders is we're risking money, and it's the fear of the unknown that really makes us anxious. Then you can start to come up with ways to cope. Now, obviously, we've talked about a couple. You can use preparation. So preparation means running your system through simulators, trading lots of different markets through the simulator, maybe even trading demo accounts. So you're doing live forward testing, trading smaller accounts. All that sort of stuff is going to give you confidence that overall the numbers are going to shake out. But that is just an overall edge. It doesn't mean that this individual trade that you're on right now is going to be a winner, and it could be a loser. And that's why learning to embrace the fear, like Mark Twain says, I have all these worries, and most of which have never come true, or whatever the quote is. It's something like that. That to me, and that's what Jerry Spence talked about in his book too. He was talking about the fear and how you feel alive, and you should be happy when you feel fear. And I think it's a really kind of a powerful thing. I was applying it to my surfing at the time, because I remember that Jerry Spence book. I was reading it, and at the time I was surfing, and I had some difficult sessions trading surfing some big waves, and getting taking wipeouts and getting held down onto the reef and tangled up in the kelp in Northern California and stuff like that. And so I had a point where I could have just sort of walked away from the day that I had this really bad wipeout where it was held down for a few waves and things like that, right? And all tangled up in the kelp. And I could have just gone home. But I was thinking a lot about the Jerry Spence book I was reading at the time. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go back out there because, you know what I mean? I don't want to let this fear dictate it. And that's the same thing with trading. If you have that fear of pulling the trigger, then what's happening is fear is dictating your behavior. And as a trader, you've raised your hand and you've said, no, I am going to embrace the fear. I am going to risk my money, because most people won't do that. Most people are willing to trade time for money. That's what most people do. I mean, you would agree, right? I mean, that's true. Most people trade time for money. But as a trader, you're saying, I am going to take risk and I'm going to take that and trade that for money. There's a potential payoff if I'm right. If I'm wrong, I lose my money and live to fight another day. But so it's really interesting when you start to look at it from the pivot point of fear and what you can do for that. You can write a lot about it. So, for example, I would encourage everybody listening to not only have a physical diary where you write down your trades, your trading journal, but also like an emotional diary where you write out your thoughts. You'd be surprised at how other things in your life end up coming out in your quote trading journal, and how those things can impact you. So yeah, that's what I would do. I would look at, in a broad sense, I would look at fear and approaches for you to embrace the fear and push through that, because at some level you've chosen this profession as a trader, or this hobby or whatever as a trader, because you've said, yes, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the fear of the unknown. And so that's something that I really like. And, we try to control it as traders. We try to like make predictions, or we have our statistics and probabilities and all that. All that is just a way of coping with the fear of the unknown. Your win rate is a way of coping with the fear of the unknown. That's why everyone wants to have a higher win rate. You could argue that it's because you want to be right. And you could also argue it's because you're trying to like reduce that fear down to a quantitative level where you can say, I've got a 45% chance that my next trade is going to be a loser. So that means I have a 55% chance that it means that it's going to be a winner. So, I've got this, sort of thing. So yeah, so I think there are some concrete things you can do, like we said, doing your testing, but also I think looking at the fear element of it and coping with that can also help a lot of traders.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it brings up another idea I had that like when I was in, I forget, college or something, I used to worry a lot. So I read this book, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living, I think was that by Carnegie. And that one helped a lot. And the biggest takeaway from that was that you should look at your worst case scenario. Like, is the worst case scenario something to really fear? And in the case of trading, if you're risking 1%, you look at that, you look at the amount of dollars that is compared to your account, and you say, oh, that's not a big deal at all. So that can be another way that you can kind of not justify it, but at least take away some of that edge that you might be afraid of losing money, or you might be losing too much money, or you don't want to give up that little bit of money, and just kind of look at it objectively and say, okay, how much am I really going to lose on this thing? And if it's a small amount, then it's not a big deal. You just play the odds. If it's a big amount, then you should fix something, and maybe you should change your trading system so you're not risking so much.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I would calculate your future trades based on the assumption that your open trades or pending trades are losers, right? So for example, this morning I put my orders in and I had an open trade that has three different positions, but it's the same trade idea. And one of the first position hit the profit and the other two didn't. So I was like, well, I have to, it's unusual. It's been fairly unusual that happens. It's just the low volatility right now in this pair. So it's the case where I have, yesterday's trade open today sort of thing. But what's interesting about that is once you start calculating your risk, assuming that the open trades or the last trade is a loser, you kind of, you can't start thinking that way. You start thinking, well, when I put the trade in, I just think, the account could lose this amount. Now, what's interesting though is once you start moving your stop loss, like I used to do, that doesn't work anymore, right? That formula doesn't work anymore because you essentially have nearly unlimited loss, because you had your stop loss in and you're saying, I'm willing to lose this much, but then the market goes against you, go, oh, let's just give it a little bit more room. That's something I used to do when I was a sort of a newbie trader. And that was bad, obviously, because now I don't have that. I don't know what my risk is when I go into it. I have no idea because I haven't, do you know what I mean? I haven't defined it. I haven't predefined it. I thought I predefined it, but not really because I keep changing it. So that's pretty tricky. Yeah. So I'm with you on that one. That's a really good way to approach it. It's not that you want to wish that your trade doesn't do well. You just want, like you say, you want to prepare for the worst and have that thought in your head that, well, this is what could happen. So
Cool. All right. Thanks, Walter.
thanks.
All information in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not trading or investment advice.